reality in the film? Because I know it's fiction, but are there certain elements of the film itself that would lend credibility to the story or make it more real for the viewer?
So, in the sense that Pontypool is a real place. I mean, it's a small town in eastern Ontario. It's also a town in Wales. It's based on, the characters are very real. The characters are very grounded, very they come from a very real place. They're very, emotionally, they're very real. This is not, the tone of the movie is, suspenseful, character thing. So it's not silly, and it's not comedic, and it's not a satire. It's not, so it comes out of a very emotionally real place. So I think people, once they commit to these characters, they will become really frightened because they love these people. So the first bit of the movie is for us to make the audience fall in love with these people. Then it becomes quite horrific, what happens. So it's not a chop fest. It's a truly scary ride that people go on.
Why focus on Pontypool, Ontario, and why shooting in Toronto?
Well, the book was set. We could have probably set it anywhere in a way. I mean, the book was set in Pontypool, and we thought it's a good place as any. I like the idea of, I'm Canadian, so I tell stories about where I'm from Toronto. I love Toronto. So I generally, there's a lot of great stories in this city, and it's, if I was from Cincinnati, I would probably make films about Cincinnati and, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or New York or London or whatever, but man, there's, tons of stuff going on in this town, and it's an international place, and it's got a particular character, I think. And
what specific elements of you are in the film, or what do you use?
Well, the main character wears a cowboy hat, so that was his choice, not mine. But he maybe he riffed off of that, so that's something. My love of horror movies. I mean, I grew up watching horror movies, the Romero films, and The Shining and all that stuff. So, it's a great sort of affection for horror and suspense movies. So that's personal, I think. And then, the cast is personal. I mean, these are people that I've worked with on a number of occasions and have quite, Steve McCanty's one of my favorite actors in the world. I just think he's just one of the best, one of the greats. He is just, I haven't worked with, Russell Crowe or anything, but, McCanty could, totally go head to head with that guy, and you know what I mean? So,
in a previous interview, I read that you mentioned Night of the Living Dead, and that you said you want to try to capture some of the glory of it. Do you even recall?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first, when I was a kid, it was one of the first movies that really spooked me out, really thought it was wonderful and just totally original, and never seen anything like it. And years later, you realize, it was made for a small crew in one place, and just made by these people in wherever Romero's from, like Pittsburgh or someplace, outside of the mainstream, outside of the center, but has become one of the great landmark American films, and has influenced generations of people. So, by doing this film, in a way, it's my way to honor my influence, I guess, to George Romero and that kind of, true independent spirit of filmmaking, where they just went out and they just did it, They didn't have a map or a guidebook or a lot of money or any of that stuff. They just, on, piss and vinegar and, hope and a prayer, they kind of pulled this thing off. So I've always admired that spirit, and I've always admired that kind of DIY sort of, attitude, and then to make something that's truly, original. So, and without being that film, this film, owes a great debt, but in a completely different way, in a completely different time, and hoping that, the man, sees it one day in a movie theater.
I think we've got some more time, which is great.
Okay.
Well, when I think of the word classic, in my mind, automatically it kind of pops up you know, that scene from Psycho or the mechanical arm, you kind of think, yeah, classic. Now, when you say classic, what are you referring to? What are you trying to bring forward?
Well, I guess like a lot of modern filmmaking or contemporary filmmaking has there's a lot of amazing visual stylizing that goes on, and whether it's like handheld cameras and flashy this and that, and we thought, okay, classic in the sense that we're going back to a kind of almost like a 50s, 60s way of shooting, like it's very classical cameras on a dolly, and that we're in CinemaScope, and we're beautiful lighting, and it's more a Hitchcock approach or a Polanski approach than it would be, I don't know, like Blair Witch or something else. You know what I mean?
The technology itself is newer.
And the technology is the Red Cam is brand new, but yeah, we're using that sort of brand new technology to kind of channel a very classic style of filmmaking, framing, lighting, studio work, shooting in a studio, character-based, so rather than the filmmaking itself being a star, in the kind of the super kinetic, flashy, fast-cutting, we'll have energy and all that sort of stuff, but it's classic in the sense of its approach. Big screen, hopefully masterful sort of approach. More Kubrick than Saw or something like that, or more Kubrick than Blair Witch or something like that.
Can you tell me a little bit about the lifestyle on set, or the lifestyle behind what we see around us?
I love the set. I mean, the set is very social. You have a range of people from, mechanically minded people to kind of conceptually minded people, and they're all in the same room together, and they all get along, and they all work together for a common cause, and there's a great sort of rigor of the day in terms of what has to be achieved. Film crew is very much like the army for hippies or something, where all these people they're quite unique characters, and they're quite, they bring a lot to the party. They all are artists in their own way, and they have a very specific job that they do, whether it's pulling focus or wardrobe or scenic painter. There's something wonderful about just being part of a crew and having that kind of gang feeling, like suddenly everybody's equal, suddenly in the moment when everything's going, everybody's equal. Yet there's this kind of very rigorous sort of pecking order in how things get done. So people respect the kind of rigor and the discipline of a set. Yeah, when it's cooking, everybody feels part of a group. Everybody feels very equal and happy to be, happy to lose themselves in this group in a way. And they put their identity in the film, and you watch any film, and if you know how it was made, I mean, the crew members can watch the film and see parts of themselves in that film. Something they've suggested to me, or an idea that they had for a shot or a detail, and people bring things to you.